right now even with that. Okay. Oh. And, hold on 1 second. Okay. All right, well, welcome back. Week 3. Very exciting. All right, so let me start with, like I said, just going to call attendance. I see it, although this one name I can actually see. So Natalie, and I'll just make sure to go through it. Wow, today is October 8th already. Thank you, Natalie. Carrie? Okay, let's see that. Jonathan? Perfect. I know this person's not, so I don't need to. Rebecca? I can see that. Tony? Did I do it right? Did I remember? Is it Tony? There we go. Cool. Kate? There we go. Wait, you're just way on top of me. Samantha? Yes, I think you're. I need that, but. Griselda? Awesome. John? John, what is that? Let's go on for a minute. Kate? Awesome. Jordan? Great. Meredith? Let's see that. I can see your name. And Mitchell, who was, I believe, the first person on. So, yes, I remember that. And I thank you for that. Okay. Well, like I said, welcome back. Got a lot to cover, and I'm hoping it's interesting. Was everybody able to find the assignment on? Because I have to admit, I should explain one thing. I didn't have my computer this week. It had to be brought in to be fixed, even though it's not even a year old. But I had one thin pixelated line missing from my from the monitor just going across. And I'm sure most of you can relate to how that could just drive you crazy. So anyway, I had to bring it in. So I didn't get to really check yet on the SmooLearn site. And I wanted to just make sure that you guys did know that. If you didn't read the assignment, it's not the end of the world. It was just to really review last week's and to go ahead and read stuff about color. But we're going to talk about color tonight. We're going to talk about color. We're going to talk about typography. We're going to go into a little bit more detail for that. So just be prepared for that. But we'll start off with a little bit of some fun, hopefully. I kind of just sort of touched upon this within one class, so I don't really expect you to remember a lot of this stuff, and that's why I go over a lot of the things, especially since we only meet once a week. Just to let you know that. Let me move this piece of paper, keep touching it. Okay, so this is the color wheel, and it has just, all the different colors, and the different colors of the thing to remember about it is the complementary colors, because that comes in handy a lot. So you can easily see that on a color wheel because it's whatever is directly opposite it. That's just what I want to show you about that. And we'll just going into some more detail with that. So primary colors, These are the colors that can't be created through mixing of any other colors. So red, yellow, and your red, yellow, and blue. And the thing about this is, rarely though do people use these colors in design, so just things to remember, except maybe a children's book because they are pretty vibrant. It's been done though. And red and yellow, popular in food logos. We're going to learn about a lot more, go into a little bit more about the whole psychology. So it'll make sense, I think, a lot more about the whole red being one of the major colors in logos for food. I noticed I was just taking a general look over the past week and how many fast food places seem to do red. Notice that yourself next time you're out there. It's kind of fascinating. Seems to be the predominant color for sure. And red and blue look better separated by space. Does somebody have a question? I just hear that. Maybe somebody's come on? Or did somebody just pop on? Yeah. Ah, okay. So Carrie, are you able to hear?
Barely, but I
Okay.
can hold the phone up to my ear and hear you, or I can look.
Okay. Okay. Well, I hope you're good soon. All right.
I'm not too. I'm probably 15 minutes from home, so I'll just kind of listen.
Okay. All right. I'll leave you for now. All right. I just muted you because it's kind of distracting for the sound. Okay. So secondary colors have a lot in common. So two share blue, two share yellow, and two share red, so they harmonize easily. So starting to hopefully get an idea of where this color wheel is coming in here. So when the two, because of that, having now the fact that, obviously we remember this from the basics from school, but the blue and yellow making green, the red and yellow making orange, and the blue and red making purple. So as a trio, they're soft, inviting, and rich, and have pleasing depth and dimension that are hard to get in other ways. Analogous, these are colors that are adjacent on the wheel. And analogous colors share strong undertones which create pleasing low contrast harmonies. Monochromatic, first are the dark, medium, and light values of a single color. It has no color depth but provides the contrast of dark, medium, and light that is so important to good design. So meaning that you can use the darkest, like in this case green, versus like the palest green to create that contrast that we were talking about that I sort of just introduced last class. Red background of the Bank of America. That's interesting. I haven't paid attention to that. I'll have to look at that. The red background of the Bank of America. Well, maybe we'll just call that up. But I guess it's they're passionate because we'll go and see about the what the meaning of red is, where it comes into play. Complementary. So like I said, these are direct opposites on the color wheel. So here's two of them just called out so you can just see that the blue and gold colors are complements. And a color and its complement convey energy, vigor, and excitement. And typically, like also you would use as an accent. Like it's great to have like a spot of red on a green field, for example, because again, we're offering that contrast, gives you something, interesting to focus on. All right. So now that I've gone over those, this is where, the game comes in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you just a few, I think I have like 4 or 5 of them, different designs. And you need to, it'll be multiple choice, but you need to guess which one is, if you want to play along, which one of these color themes that I've been talking about, that I've just mentioned, is used. So here's the first one. Do you think it's monochromatic, analogous, complementary, primary, or secondary? What do you think is the main thing? Sometimes they might be more than, it might be a little bit difficult, but cool. I think that one's fairly easy because we have the varying shades of green there. So good. Now let's go to the next one. So what about this? And don't forget I have all the font choices. So monochromatic, analogous, complementary, primary colors, secondary colors. And you guys are guessing by like A, B, C, D, like as in that order, right? Just guessing that because I just realized I don't have A, B, C, D there, but that's cool. That's fine if you're doing it that way. So yes, very cool. Yep, smart group. This one. This is the one. Let's see if you guess this one. Yeah. All right. Just give it a chance. Yes. Guys are good. That's usually the toughie. Because people don't think in terms of the fact that there's the different values. It didn't have to be that we're talking about bright red, bright yellow, or bright blue. So it is those three colors, and it is the primary colors. So very, very good. Okay. This one's another one that tends to throw people, so I throw it in also. Awesome. Awesome job. That was a good one too, because that one's a little bit tougher too, but it is the varying shades that are next to each other. So good job. So just a fun thing for that. Start off before we go into all this. All right. So why is learning color like important? I mean, color in design, it's very subjective, and what evokes one reaction in one person may evoke a very different reaction in someone else. Obviously, we're all different. Sometimes this is due to personal preference, and other times it's due to cultural background. Feelings about color are often deeply personal and rooted in your own experience or culture. So, for example, while the color white is used in many Western countries to represent purity and innocence, it is seen as a symbol of mourning in many Eastern countries. So, that goes back to my whole thing about always knowing about what you're going to be designing for. It's a big world out there, and lots of, even here, big world within here, all the different cultures that exist within Texas and Dallas. So studying how colors affect different people, either individually or as a group, is something actually some people even build their careers on. And there's a lot to it. Something as simple as changing the exact hue, and we'll go into what hue is and saturation, or saturation of a color can evoke a completely different feeling. Cultural differences mean that something that's happy and uplifting in one place may be depressing to one culture, may be depressing to another. So keep aware of it. But also, it's fun. I mean, color is such a pervasive part of everything we visually encounter in the world that for many designers, it becomes an intuitive choice. I mean, if you think back to elementary school, we were told that we could make any color from any of the three primary colors, the red, yellow, and blue. But it turns out that there's a little bit more to it than that. And the theory of color is a discipline that stretches back to at least the 15th century. It encompasses physics, chemistry, mathematics to fully define and explain the concepts, but we don't need to go into that much detail, and we're not going to. Hopefully, I've sifted through most of it for you so that I could give you the important stuff. But for us as designers, understanding how color is formed and more importantly, the relationships between different colors can help you to use it more effectively in your designs, which is what you're here for, to be designers. So color systems. There are the two primary, I mentioned this in passing in one of the classes also, so we're going to go over this again. But there are the two primary color systems, and they're the methods by which color is produced, and that was when I talked about additive and subtractive. We use both on a daily basis, so the monitor now that you're watching this presentation on uses additive color to generate all the colors you're seeing. And the book that we use for this course uses subtractive color on its front cover. So to put it in simple terms, anything that emits light, the sun, screen, a projector, whatever, uses additive color. Everything else, which instead reflects light, uses subtractive color. So RGB is the additive. And additive color works with anything that emits or radiates light. The mixture of different wavelengths of light creates different colors, and the more light you add, the brighter and lighter the color becomes. When using additive color, we tend to consider the building blocks colors to be red, green, and blue. So we're not talking the primary now, we're talking red, green, and blue. And this is the basis for all the color you use on screen. So in additive color, white is the combination of color, while black is the absence of color. And you can see when they overlap there in the center, when all three colors combine together, that's what happens, is they're creating white. And then on the flip side, we have CMYK, which is the subtractive color, and that works on the basis of reflected light. So rather than pushing more light out, the way a particular pigment reflects different wavelengths of light determines its apparent color to the human eye. Subtractive color, like additive, has three primary colors. So the three primary colors are cyan, magenta, yellow, or the CMY. And in subtractive color, white is the absence of color, while black is a combination of color, but it's an imperfect system because it really becomes more of like that, dark gray. So the pigments we have available to us to use don't fully absorb light, preventing reflected color wavelengths. So we have to add that fourth compensating pigment to account for this limitation. And we call this key, hence CMYK, but essentially it's black. And without this additional pigment, the closest to black we'd be able to render and print would just be that muddy brown. And I don't know about you, but I personally appreciate a really rich black in design. So back to this guy, the color wheel. So in order to make it easier to see the relationship between the different colors, the concept of the modern color wheel was developed around the 18th century. And these early wheels plotted different primary colors around the circle, mixing different primary colors together in strict ratios to achieve the secondary and tertiary. Tertiary is a combination of the secondary colors. The color wheel allows us to see at a glance which colors are complementary, again, opposite each other on the wheel, analogous, so adjacent to each other on the wheel, triadic, which is three colors positioned at 120 degrees on the wheel from each other, and so on. And each of these relationships can produce pleasing color combinations. There are many more pleasing relationships between colors based on their position on the wheel. And that's where we have like the Adobe Cooler. I did hopefully demonstrate that, right? And there are plenty of others too. And when I have like finally get around to putting those handouts together, one of those will be also, like I said, it'll be a list of various spots, various websites to go to learn about color further, or there's some fun ones, like there's one called, I can never pronounce it, something with a pic, but it lets you actually upload a picture and it will give you colors from that pictures that your design will blend nicely together. Take the colors from that picture, and there's a lot of them. So I talked about this real quickly last week about Pantone spot color. They're almost like used synonymously together because Pantone is the main spot color thing. There's others, but a spot color is specially mixed ink, so used in printings, and the spot colors come in a rainbow of colors, including some specialty ones such as metallic, fluorescent. And unlike CMYK or process color, which creates colors by laying down layers of the four specific inks, spot colors are pre-mixed, and you can use one ink for each color in your publication. You can also use tints of a spot color to get the appearance that you're using more colors without the expense of adding additional inks, because the more of these spot colors you use, the more expensive your print job is. So there are, like I said, there are different brands of spot color inks in the United States. The dominant one is Pantone. And the Pantone matching system, or PMS is preferred to if you see that a lot. It consists of over 1,000 colors of ink. Other spot colors include Toyo, DIC, and ANPA. So there are many cases for when to use a Pantone spot color. Here are the two common ones. One is to use when a publication needs a color that cannot be accurately reproduced with CMYK inks, such as the precise color matching of a corporate or logo color. Like I said, people are very particular about that. And when the project requires special effects, such as the metallic or fluorescent spot inks. So, yellow is yellow, right? Well, actually, no. There are many different colors we could refer to as yellow. Different shades or tints, saturations, and hues are all possible while still being within the yellow part of the color wheel. Because actually, that color wheel is really much more like more gradient. There's more gradient differentiation in reality between all those colors. So, and as a result, there are three primary component parts that help us define a color. So I have this illustration here that I just want to go over. So hue, this is typically referred to in degrees around the color wheel. So a yellow color will appear between 50 and 60 degrees, with the perfect yellow appearing at 56 degrees. Green, meanwhile, appears at 120 degrees on the wheel, and so on. So saturation, how saturated or rich a color is. Low saturation results in less overall color, eventually becoming a shade of gray when fully desaturated. And saturation is normally referred to as a percentage between 0 and 100. And I'm sorry, I'm going to mute everybody because there's something distracting. There we go. Sorry about that. Any questions through that? So let me get through these bullets and then I'll take questions. And then we have brightness, how bright a color is. This is typically expressed as a percentage between 0 and 100% too. And yellow at 0% brightness will be black, so no yellow. While the same yellow hue and saturation at 100% brightness will be the full yellow color. Oh, okay. No problem. But I'll keep it muted for now. So, does anybody have any questions? And if you do, I'd be happy to turn your sound on anytime you have a question. Okay, go ahead. Oh, I forgot about those. Shade. Adding various amounts of black to get shades. The hue plus black equals a shade. And then we have tints, which is adding various amounts of white to lighten the hue, and the light hues are tints. And I actually have a review of some of this vocabulary again, so don't worry if you don't get it. CMYK concept. You're talking about the hue, saturation, and brightness? Because actually it's just a, it's refers to all colors in general. Just the fact that you could do the different hues, saturations, and brightness. And I could show you it in like Illustrator or Photoshop as well if you want. But it would be either way. If we could do it if we were working in RGB or if we were working in CMYK. Oh yeah, no, black to get shades. No, so yeah, you can just do it. It's actually a lot of fun to play with the shades. So we'll go into Illustrator and do that. Did I show you guys that trick last week of the blend mode, using the blend mode, the blend tool in Illustrator? I only ask because sometimes I lose track of what I have said already or not. It's probably worth showing again because you can use it for a whole bunch of great things. And for those of you who are already adept in this, I'll show you the trick of, yeah, I'll show you the trick of the lines too, because I don't know if I did that you can use it for like anything. So let's do that now. We'll come back to this part right here. Okay, so back to layer 20, and I have it up this time. Ta-da. And let's do, yeah, I mean, obviously you'll go over all this stuff when you guys are taking these individual courses, but I'm hoping that if I give you just some, introduction to them, maybe you'll remember it again by, because I'm a very big fan of that reinforcement thing. And so here's the deal where I have the different layouts, and I'm going to say reset so I can get rid of all these things that are distracting. I'm doing Command N or it's Control N just for a new document. In this case, I'm just going to let it go. I don't care what it is, but it happens to be RGB because it says it right there, just so you know. But I could equally have picked CMYK for this. So anyway, the deal is here. Let's just do that with that. So let's just pick a blue. And you can just see this is the blue, but here's the different things. And actually, this is without, I'm not doing the blend tool yet. I'm holding down my option key and I'm just duplicating it a couple of times to just show here that we could take out, we could do, well here, you can even do it here because you can play with the hue, saturation, and brightness. So if we take the brightness down to 0, let's see what happens. We get black. And we could do, this is already that. I'm going to take that down to 0. And I have white. So it's just showing you that you can go through it. And this disappearing screen for you. But anyway, also to this blue, we can make this darker like here. So here's where it has, this is the easiest place to do it. Here's the breakdown of this color in CMYK. So right now, this blue is made up of 88% cyan, 77% magenta. There's no yellow, and there's no black. But we can add black. So if we add 20% black and say OK, that's what's affecting the shade of the color. Let's take another color. And this one I'll show you again with the Pantone color, just as a quick reminder again about that, where you can find it. So there's a variety of, if there's a little arrow representation here on any of these palettes, and in this case what I've done is I've dragged the swatches palette. If I click and hold under here, you can see it says Open Swatch Library. Color books, not too many things to go to here. And let's just take Pantone Solid Uncoated or whatever, ahas. The first 14 of these colors, the first group of these colors until we get to black, are the colors that actually make up these first group here, are the colors that make up all these other Pantone colors. And if it's a lighter shade, they add like a transparent white. It's kind of not really white, it's more of an opaque that makes the colors lighter. So that's how Pantone colors are made. You can see they're kind of duller, and that's because of the fact that these are the ones that are going on the shinier paper probably. So what I'm doing here is I'm just drawing a rectangle. I'm holding down my X key because it brings my stroke color to the front, and I'm going to hit the backslash because all these are shortcuts. So if you are somebody who works with this, I like to tell the shortcuts at the same time. So one of these here, holding down my Option key and the Shift key, because what the Shift key is doing is it's constraining it so that I'm moving it directly down and they're staying in line with each other. And then I'm going to go here. We have this wonderful palette here called Transparency. So again, you can see I'm making this, I can close this up now so you guys don't have it as busy. And I'm going to make the first one 10%. So that's a tint of this color. This is the hue because it's the color in its purest form, and this is a tint of it. We can do the varying tints by going here, here, and I'm going to double click on the blend tool, and that brings up options. I'm going to say specified steps, and I'm going to say 8. And I'm going to say OK. I'm going to click here once with the blend tool and click again. And what that does is it gives me this thing of the various shades. So that's just a quick way, if you do have a Pantone color, you can always look at it. Now remember, this is actually grouped together, so look, if I move this, everybody else is affected as well, because this is still a group thing. You could, however, at any time, if you just click and hold on this and say Object Expands, and just whatever the default is that comes up is fine, say OK. Now these are all separate. You just have to do one other thing, say on Group, and then you can handle them as individual things, however you want to do it. But anyway, that's a quick thing for that. But I just like to bring up here, and let's just go back to black. This is the line tool. If I click and hold this straight line, and let's make it just a little bit thicker, like 4 points. Okay. Option Shift. I just want to tell you that you can do the same thing with this wonderful, I love this blend tool. I use it all the time, so I can show you. So I can click on a line, click on a line. I have to have them selected. They're both selected. Now I can do the blend tool. And what it's doing in this case is, because it's still on the default, it's putting 8 lines. But I can double click on this tool at any time, bring up the options. Here's my 8. I can just go ahead and do this, and we can say preview so you can see. So quick way to do a bunch of lines if you want to ever do that going through. So comes in handy. So doesn't have to do with color, but just worth going over since I'm talking about the blend tool. Thought I'd throw that in real quick. And now you can also do that. You can play with the colors and the hue saturation, especially also in Photoshop. It's really good for that. So when people have asked me this before also about, like, you guys are going through the whole course so you don't have this, but a lot of people have asked me over the course of time whether or not, what one program is, better than another. If they were only going to study one program, which one should they pick? And that's a tough thing to say because, like, for me, I always seem to have Photoshop, InDesign, and Illustrator open, and I actually do a bunch of things working within all 3. So I just want to throw that in there that I personally think they're all pretty valuable for various reasons. Hopefully we'll get a chance, we'll go into InDesign and do some of the typography thing. So that's about that. Has anybody ever played with the blend tool before? Some of you, I think, have had some experience with this. It's a lot of fun. You can also do like the circles. It's great, isn't it? Because that's also what we can do to make, I use that more for gradients than I do the gradient tool itself. So, because you can do smooth color as well. And actually, since we are in a color class, I can go ahead and do that, show you that real quick. Because it's relatable. So let's just show you that you can do smooth color as well. Okay, let's pick, say, the red. I'll just do a quick one. And I'll just move it over here. I'll make this one an orange. And we can do the same thing where we click them, but let's double click on this time, and we'll do smooth color. We'll say OK. And you can see that it starts to go ahead and make a gradient pretty quickly. So it's another way to do that. Sometimes these things get, like, if you've ever seen banding, which means like you can almost see like the lines between the colors that are going together. So a way to get around that is I would change this back again to specified steps and just keep going. Like if I do say 200, it's going to get smoother the higher the number that I put in there. So quick way to do. The only thing about this with the gradient wise, you can't change like the direction of it. I mean, you can change around the whole thing because we can just go ahead and rotate it, you know, that way, but otherwise it's not the same thing as gradients, which do that. So I'll have to cover gradients, and I will. We will be covering gradients in this class in the future, but there's just a quick tip on making a background in a couple of minutes. All right, back to our show, as they say. Does anybody have any questions about that? Anyway, that's why I love Illustrator. I love the tools in it. I think it's fun. Okay, remember this? This was one of those confusing things, the color gamut, so I just wanted to go over that again. So the range of colors available with CMYK is different from the range of colors you can achieve with RGB. And this is partially because of the nature of the two different systems, but also as a consequence of the limitations in our technology. I mean, screens aren't always capable of producing the same range of colors as each other, and pigments reflect light at a non-uniform rate as you reduce their saturation. So that's what that has to do with that. So the color gamut is a way of describing the full range of potential colors a system can reproduce. I hope that's clear with that, because like I said, it's a term that comes up a lot. So again, different colors can affect the way we perceive other colors. So a typical illustration of this features a mid-gray tone placed over a light gray background, and the same mid-gray tone shown over a dark gray background. And the apparent brightness of the mid-gray is altered according to the context in which you see it. A trick of the, hopefully it comes across on this as well, because it's the same gray box in the center color, but you know, just showing one on the lighter gray and one on the darker gray. So hues work in the same way as tones when placed adjacent to other colors, allowing you to create different effects using the same palette of colors. So sometimes you're just using these colors, the same colors, by creating the illusion that there's more color than you're seeing. So the psychological effects of color. Our feelings about color are often deeply personal, like I said. So when I talked about, you know, the color white again before, with representing purity and innocence. And it's a powerful communication tool, and this can be used to signal action, influence mood, and cause physiological reactions. Certain colors have been associated with increased blood pressure, increased metabolism, and eye strain. So very, very serious business we got going here. So while perceptions of colors are somewhat subjective, there are some color effects that have universal meaning. And those two, I actually will show you what those are in a minute. But let's go over what some of the colors are. So red is the most dominant and dynamic color. And psychology suggests that red is activating, stimulating, passionate, exciting, powerful, and expanding. Orange. And actually, I think about, just out of curiosity, just everybody think about what your favorite color is first, and then you can see how this relates to you when I read them. Orange is very stimulating, active, cheerful, and sociable. It is less arousing than red and more pleasantly stimulating. Yellow. Yellow is very happy, warm, stimulating, and expansive. It draws people out, makes people more talkative. Yellow encourages optimism and hope and helps to focus attention and stimulate intellect. Later on, I won't get to it today, but I have an example of where I think yellow is just completely used wrong, but we'll go over that too, because when we talk about just examples of putting some of these things into practical use. Green, very calming, balancing, healing, relaxing, and tranquil. It represents growth, vitality, abundance, and nature. Green stimulates possibility and is very inspiring. Blue is calming, healing, soothing, and relaxing. Blue characterizes dependability, trustworthiness, and security. It increases creativity, contemplation, and spirituality. Purple represents nobility, abundance, and dignity. It is very soothing and calming and is often related to intuition and spirituality. And side note on purple, I've often read that it's a color that men do not like. So, guys, you guys can chime in if you think that that's true. Black connotes sophistication, power, elegance, and modernness, I guess is it? Modernity. It's also introspective and mysterious. While white represents clarity, innocence, cleanliness, spirituality, purity, hope, expansiveness, and openness, but it can also be sterile and detached. Gray is neutral, calm, quiet, and lacks energy. According to color psychology, gray can also be boring, conservative, and draining to the physical body. Brown is considered stable, grounding, reliable, motherly, and comfortable, and inexpensive. Pink is sedating and calming. It also symbolizes love and romance. Then there are other categories like pastels. Pastels evoke openness and relaxation. Pastels are considered relieving and soothing and are even sometimes equated with sanity. Silver is another one. Silver is often associated with vision, clarity, insight, mental power, and intellectual learning. Silver can reduce anxiety and create peace. It is often correlated to water, metal, and technology. Gold is equated with sophistication, luxury, quality, wealth, and splendor. So hopefully one of your favorite colors was in there and you get that. But anyway, what I was saying, there are some color effects that have universal meaning. That's when we talk about this. So if you've heard people talk about warm colors, especially like when it comes to like photography. So colors in the red area of the color spectrum are known as warm colors and include red, orange, and yellow. And these warm colors evoke emotions ranging from feelings of warmth and comfort to feelings of anger and hostility. So, very interesting. And then on the opposite side, we have the cool colors blue, purple, green. And these colors are often described as calm, but can also call to mind feelings of sadness or indifference. So, why am I going into so much detail about color? Well, summing up what we've been talking about, the colors on the warm side of the spectrum, such as red and yellow, are bold, uplifting, and energetic, while their cooler counterparts, the blue and green, exclude calmness and feel more reserved. So, this is particularly relevant when it comes to branding. And on an emotional level, in terms of how consumers feel when they look at it, and also on a practical level, in terms of a market standout. So, for a company to effectively own a color, and again, you can't see me, but those were quotes, own a color, um, in its sector can provide an enormous competitive advantage, achieving instant recognition in some cases, even without a logo or even a mention of its name. That's the power of color done right. So, like if I said to you orange, what do you think of? Does anybody, does a company come to mind right away for that? For anybody? Interesting. Yeah, I have to admit that was the one that came to mind for me. Sunkiss is cool. That's interesting. But I was thinking Home Depot because they are very, very much part of that whole orange. Okay, so here's a case of these guys. These guys kind of own red. And red is actually a difficult color to own in any market segment. As we have mentioned, it is the color of anger and danger, but it also represents warmth and passion. It's also scientifically proven to increase your heart rate and raise your blood pressure, so it's a bold choice of color to use. And here are these two iconic brands are known for their use of the color red. Coke has made it red its signature color. Recently, you can even see that's their minimalist packaging, and it's pretty much pared down to just the primary red with just like the flourishes of white. I mean, it's very red. I think where they went with that. That's actually very funny. That makes sense to me too. I like the idea of that. Hooters is definitely identifiable with orange. Hooters is also interesting because they redid their logo after what, so many years. They finally redid their logo. So that's an interesting thing too. We can maybe talk about it again when we talk about logos. And I thought this was actually, these are also kind of interesting. There's some interesting stories with this. So these are, more colors. And these are companies with um, trademark. And actually, what I meant to tell you before about that is that Target puts its trademark red against Walmart's blue. And trademarking a color, so you know what that is, it means that you have ownership of that color within your own industry. So Target can't sue Coca-Cola for using a similar red because they're not selling competing products. But if Walmart started, which is not going to happen, but if Walmart had started using the same color red as Target, that would be a trademark infringement. So in this case, here are these are more companies with the trademark color. So Deere and Company, it's the green and yellow there. Their use of green and yellow has almost become synonymous with outdoor power equipment. So they have the rights to the colors, and no other machinery maker can use them separately or together. And then some fun facts about the University of Texas. Their burnt orange is a Pantone color. So remember, spot color system. They use Pantone 159. In 2010, the school shut down 2 iPhone apps due to their use of burnt orange and mentioning Texas in their names. UPS. UPS has used brown for its truck since 1916 when it was called Pullman Brown. And here's an interesting fact about UPS's color choice. In 1998, an executive told the New York Times that the company chose brown because it was the epitome of luxury at the time. In general psychological terms, though, brown evokes feelings of simplicity and honesty, so the color has become shorthand for the company itself. What can brown do to you for you? I don't know if they currently do that, but it's one of their. It's cool. Yeah, Popeyes. It does. Sorry, I'm just looking at that up there for that. And by the way, besides the color shapes, but besides color, I mean shapes and symbols can also be trademark. So I think these are a few, hopefully a few examples of what I mean by, owning their color. So my quotes explained. All right, let's see. So reviewing some of the things here for the color. Hue is the most basic of the color terms, and it basically denotes an object's color. So when we say blue, green, or red, we're talking about hue. So the hues used in your design convey important messages. Chroma, that's a term that refers to the purity of a color. So a hue with high chroma has no black, white, or gray in it. Adding white, black, or gray reduces its chroma. It's similar to saturation, but not quite the same. Chroma can be thought of as the brightness of a color in comparison to white. In design, avoid using hues that have a very similar chroma. Often instead for hues with chromas that are the same or a few steps away from each other. So saturation refers to how a hue appears under particular lighting conditions. Think of saturation in terms of weak versus strong or pale versus pure hues. In design, colors with similar saturation levels make for more cohesive looking designs. As with chroma, colors with similar but not identical saturations can have a jarring effect on viewers. Value could also be called lightness. It refers to how light or dark a color is. So, typo, lighter colors have higher values. For example, orange has a higher value than navy blue or dark purple. Black has the lowest value of any hue and white the highest. So when applying color values to your designs, favor colors with different values, especially ones with high chroma. High contrast values generally result in more aesthetically pleasing designs. So that's why we're talking about that. Now, on this next thing, I'm not going to go into a lot of it, but I'm going to do a quick intro into it because I want to also talk about something else that's going to come up as we progress in this class, a project that'll relate to what we're working on. So I just want to give you a quick idea about what I mean by branding. So that's what it is. Branding, a brand or branding refers to the perceived image and subsequent emotional response to a company, its products and services. It also represents the conversation that customers are having with each other about the company and how that spreads. And there's a couple of different terms, so these are the main ones. So branding is the general term. Then we have logo. So a logo is the central identifiable visual element that helps customers discover, share, and remember a company's brand. Usually it's in the form of an icon, mark or symbol, logo type, or combination of the two. And identity. It's another term you'll hear. And again, we'll go into this in more detail. But an identity describes the visual devices used to represent the company. So identity systems are visual components package that is paired with style guidelines and used as a framework to ensure that the corporate image is cohesive and consistent. Some of you might even, already be in companies that adhere to this kind of thing. Some of the visual devices that leverage the brand elements and style guidelines are as follows. So we're talking about making companies stationery, marketing collateral, packaging, signage, messaging, and digital projects. All right, so before I go into typography, I'm going to go out of here for a second. Just tell you about this. Okay. So there is, and this is going to become incorporated more into the idea of the homework assignments. And I will give you I'll be happy to turn this into a handout as well. But here's the deal. We're going to have like this there's going to be a fictional company. So the deal is you are employed by the whole pie company and it's a business that makes and sells homemade pies to wholesale and retail customers. You've recently joined the marketing department as an entry-level graphic designer. Your boss, the director of marketing, has been employed at the Whole Pie for 10 years, but has no graphic design experiences, has hired you to help with the internal design needs such as in-store signs, newspaper ads, etc. And at an internal meeting, the company has decided to hire a design firm to update its current promotional materials for all print, packaging, web, and advertising needs. You'll be participating in this project by assisting the design firm while reporting to the marketing director. The marketing director has a meeting with the design agency to discuss options for new marketing materials. They will be talking about brand identity and updating the logo and image of the company, but Mother is skeptical. Considering, so today, after today, for this, we're going to do talk more about typography then. And after this, your next homework assignment will be considering today's lesson on color and typography. It's your job at the Whole Pie Company designer to recommend some options for color combinations and a new typeface to be used for labels, signs, and packaging for the new branding. And you'll be able to refer to today's lessons in Chapter 2 on color and Chapter 3, pages 114 to 130. It should all be, if it's not on there, let me know. But I will actually, even if it is on there, on this Moodle, and I'll send it to you as well in an email, this entire thing, instead of even just making it a handout. And we'll just email you this after class. But I just want to give you a heads up on where, that there is this company thing and that there are going to be projects tied into it so that you can get some, hopefully, do some more applications instead of just, listening or, doing reading, and keep talking to each other though on the chat boards and stuff. That's great. But just want to give you a heads up on that. And as we go on, and when I send it to you, if you end up having any questions, of course, you can contact me about it anytime. So wanted to let you know about that. And that's why I just wanted to touch upon those three things for that before we go into this. And most of this is written out. And then hopefully we'll have some time to go into InDesign, and I can show you some great tips and tricks and some fun stuff with InDesign, which I'm fond of as well. My top three. But as I admit, I'm very geeky about Adobe stuff, so I'm obviously easily amused. So typography. I love this. So let me show you. I just really think that it's just really adorable. So that's the only reason I have it on the slide. But anyway, the idea is that typography helps clarify a message that the designer sends to an audience. A properly selected font has a huge impact on getting a message across to its intended audience. An poorly chosen font or bad typographic layout can detract from or even block the message altogether. So basically the two things, and that's why they're both really important: color and typography. But it's just fun. I mean, there's so many things out there, which are just some great examples of typography. So let's just go into a little bit of the history, and later on it'll help hopefully make sense why, going into that. So the earliest attempts to communicate with imagery was around 25,000 BC. And this was primarily in cave drawings, as shown here. And this is what early humans used. They used symbols to communicate ideas. That's kind of cool because we still really use symbols today for different things, right? Like, the various, signs, obviously, for restrooms or whatever. It doesn't even, just have the men and the women. Stop signs, the universal, and that's even with the color. It's an important thing. So pictographs represent concepts consistently. These are that was also another earlier form of this. They were simplified drawings representing objects. This was like the next form of this. This is an example of the hieroglyphics. They were created by the Egyptians. So the advantage of this was the ability to communicate universally without language barriers. So now we're going to go into how we're starting to get into typography by starting with the history of the alphabet. And the Phoenicians developed an alphabet of 22 symbols around 1000 BC. These symbols were related to the sounds in language. It's kind of interesting because I think if you look at them, you can start to see like some letters. Of course, it looks like a lot of them are backwards. It was also interesting was it was consonants only, no vowels. And the alphabet eliminated the need for people to memorize all the thousands of symbols. Trying to make life easier. So next, the Greeks expanded on the Phoenician. They added vowels and they named each character. So you're seeing there it says alpha, beta, gamma, delta. And it was the first system for reading left to right and top to bottom. And then the Romans developed the Greek alphabet further to the current one that we use today. They added lowercase letters. Interesting, the letter Z, by the way, has not always been like, it wasn't always at the end of the alphabet. In the Greek alphabet, it came in a, actually it was like the 7th letter of the alphabet. And then, according to Tom MacArthur in the Oxford Companion to English Language, the Romans adopted Z later than the rest of the alphabet since Z was not a native Latin sound, adding it at the end of their list of letters and using it rarely. And the Irish and English simply imitated the Roman convention of placing Z last. So, and another interesting fact was that when I talked about serifs and sans serifs, serifs originally were chisel strokes used to finish the bottom of letters. So that's where that originally started, is because they were chiseled. And then this guy changed it all. For years, books were hand produced for, well, primarily for religious related purposes. They were hand produced, which you can imagine was probably incredibly time consuming. And in the mid 15th century, Johann Gutenberg invented the printing press and changed the world. It allowed rapid production and distribution of printed ideas. So basically, modern typography actually begins with this, the invention of movable type. And since the time of Gutenberg, the typographic form has evolved with technology, philosophy, and culture. Type characters are most often broken down into classifications of common visual characteristics called families of type. So as letter forms became more symbolic and less like pictures, the size, the form, the shape of each letter became important. Lettering itself began to be seen as an art form. There was, I'm terrible at the pronunciation name. His name is Pacioli or Pacioli. He was a Franciscan monk, and he's actually mentioned several times in the notebooks of Leonardo da Vinci. And in 1509, he actually published a book on typography. And in an appendix to the book, each of the capital Roman letters is broken down into its component parts, showing the underlying proportions. What are you looking at here? So we're going to go over these family classifications of type because They are, it actually helps, it'll help when you, I think, know what these styles are about, and like, you know, the idea of where you can use them and not use them, and doing that thing where we did the contrast conflict. So these are the basic styles. I'm going to go through them, what they are and what makes up them, their specific characteristics. But the 7 are old style, transitional, modern, slab serif, sans serif, decorative, and script cursive. And I'll show you the fonts. These are representation of what they are, but there's actually, each one of those fonts is that. So that is an old style font for old style, transitional, etc. And as I go through here, I'll tell you what font was used, because you'll probably recognize some of them if you work with them. So Caslon, old style characteristics. So minimal, characterized by a minimal variation of thick and thin strokes. Small coarse serifs, often with slightly concave bases. Small X heights. And X height is what it sounds like. I mean the height of the letter X from the baseline. I'll show you. I have a diagram coming after this. In the round strokes, the stress is diagonal or oblique, and oblique is like italic, so it's slanted, as their designs mimic the handheld angle of the pen nibs of the scribes. So they were trying to recreate the handwritten stuff. The tops of lowercase ascenders often exceed the height. The numerals, called old style figures, vary in size and have ascenders and descenders. So again, typo, missing a period. So here we go. This is, hopefully you can visualize it more, start to look at it. Because it actually does help to recognize these things and know what they are. But you'll understand that when it comes up. So transitional, the height of capitals matches that of ascenders. No way that's on there still. Got that. Anyway, they also have a greater contrast between thick and thin strokes. And wider, gracefully bracketed serifs with flat bases. And vertical stress and rounded strokes. And you can just see there, that's the old style versus transitional, what started to happen. And Baskerville is the example in that. Next we have modern. And actually, Taito is the font that's used up on the top there, but then Bodoni is also an example of modern. And it's got extreme contrast between the thick and the thin strokes. Hairline serifs without bracketing. So what bracketing is, that'll come up. I have definitions. Small X height. Vertical stress and rounded strokes. So this Officina serif is actually a slab serif font. And a really nice one too for that. So if you're looking for this kind of font at some point, this is just one of my favorites. And there's minimal variation of thick and thin strokes in this font. Heavy serifs with squared off ends. Large X heights. You can see that they're really high up compared to the ones with the ascenders. Vertical stress in the rounded corners. Then we have decorative, which posters and advertisements relied heavily on large size type called display type to attract attention. So this is considered one of the display fonts. And because of the size of display type, readability was less important than visual impact. Display types began to display ornamentation to achieve this impact. And those are some other display fonts. You can see that there wouldn't be something that you'd really want to read a lot of, but are good for an effective headline or whatever. Frutiger is a sans serif font. And for whatever reason, like that people have just an affinity for different things, this is mine. I just really like this font. I use it a lot. I think because of also the fact that it has various weights, so it's one of those ones that has Frutiger Light, Frutiger Roman, Frutiger Bold, Frutiger Black, Frutiger Ultra Black. So I'm really fond of the fonts that, so I don't have to use multiple fonts. I like ones that have all those different weights and variations. So you can see here, sans serif. Little or no variation between thick and thin strokes. Lack of serifs, so there's lack of those little things there. Larger X height, no stress in the rounded strokes. So Siddha handwriting is actually what it's called, is the font. Script cursive. And script and cursive designs can be calligraphic, appearing to be pen-drawn, formal, bearing the look of engraving, seen on social printing such as invitations and announcements, or brush, more informal styles appearing to be brush-drawn. And most designs feature ornate, swashed uppercase characters, making these type styles largely confusing and unreadable when said in all caps. So you really don't want to use the script font in all caps. And then here's just a nice example of using that in a layout. It's another also an example, I think, of a really well balanced design. You know, with the way the script just goes with all the carrots, vegetation. I think they're carrots on the right going through. So here's all the things they're talking about, hopefully, that you can go back and look at. And I really want to, this one I actually found this image and I love it, but I'd like to recreate it so I can make it clearer because as you can see, it's pretty fuzzy right now. And that helps exemplify the fact that it's something that was taken off of the web site, so the quality of it is not going to be as good, the resolution, when it gets blown up, and that's one of the disadvantages to what this is, which is a raster image, versus if I recreated this in Illustrator, it would look a lot nicer. So here's some stuff about that. We can just go through real quick. Arm leg is an upper lower horizontal diagonal stroke that's attached on one end, free on the other. The ascender, when you hear people talking about that, that's the part of a lowercase character that extends above the X height. Bar is the horizontal stroke in characters such as the A, H, R, E, and F. It's fascinating that there are just so many terms to me that describe just typography in general. So the bowl has a curved stroke which creates an enclosed space within a character. Space is then called a counter. And if you go back and look at the image, you'll be able to see all these things in that. So counter is the partially or fully enclosed space within a character. Like in the E. Cap height, the height of capital letters from the baseline to the top of caps, most accurately measured on a character with a flat bottom. Counter is the partially or fully enclosed space within a descender. So the part of a character that descends below the baseline. A link is the stroke that connects the top and bottom part of a two-story lowercase g. Loop is the lower portion of the lowercase g. And we have then the serif again, but it's the projections extending off the main strokes of the character of serif typefaces. Serifs come in two styles, bracketed and unbracketed. I'm going to go back to that diagram in a second and show you. Brackets are the supportive curves which connect the serif to the stroke. Unbracketed serifs are attached sharply and usually at 90-degree angles. Shoulder is the curved stroke of the H, M, and N. Spine is the main curved stroke of the S. Spur is a small projection off the main stroke found on many capital Gs. Stem is a straight vertical stroke or the main straight diagonal stroke in the letter which has no verticals. Stress is the direction of thickening in a curved stroke. Stroke is a straight or curved line. Swash, a fancy flourish representing a terminal or a serif. Tail, the descender of a Q or a short diagonal stroke of an R. Terminal, the end of a stroke not terminated with a serif. And X height, the height of the lowercase letters, specifically the lowercase x, not including the ascenders and descenders. So what role does typography play in graphic design? Well, it could be a lot of fun. So here's like letters and numbers, can cleverly strengthen a message. Thought these were kind of cute. These were for extension suitcase fusion ads. And here's some more of that, where they're using type as imagery. It's time to get organized. Math rules. It's time to get organized is from 1983. This is from the 90s, I think. In that, oh, it actually says deadline to order March 23rd, 2000 for the math rules from the newspaper and education series. Okay, so now I'm talking about legibility. I just wanted to show you that. What a difference it can make, obviously. Having yellow type on white. So here's where you can just physically seeing how legibility is important. So make sure your type can be read. Also, for this size type though, the better thing is to have it should be a serif font. It's actually known to be better for legibility. Also should be less than the default that comes in the programs, because most of the programs you have, they default is 12. Should be somewhere between like 8.5 to 11 on average is really what should be for reading. I just like that. I just thought it was kind of fun playing on that. So typography can provide an element of expression to accompany a message. So that craftily crafted typography increases emotional impact of a message over just plain type. And obviously a well-conceived typographic composition allows the designer to connect with the reader. And that's what I have for that. So we are going to go into InDesign, because there's lots of fun typography tricks to be had in that. Give me a second. Does anybody have any questions on what we've done so far? Give you a break, because it's been a lot of information I've been putting to you guys. Nope, that's it. They're done. There we go. Okay, who's used InDesign a lot? Cool. Yay, got a couple of me's. Hold on 1 second. Bear with me a minute. A little? Okay. Okay. I'll show you a bunch of stuff with this though. Okay, it's okay about the never, because that's going to be good, because I'm going to go through the whole basics with this. But there is so much to it. It's just kind of fun. So it starts here. So let's start just quickly about the interface. So you can see. Like I said, they do a similarity in the interfaces between Photoshop. Yeah. Really? I only had Quark Express? You never switched over to InDesign at the Star Telegram? That's interesting, Mitch. Because we had to go through the whole, we actually switched over at the Dallas Morning News from Quark Express to InDesign. And got a lot of resistance for it, too. Which, again, I love this program, so go through it and I'll show you, hopefully show you a couple of things, and even the people who already have used this, maybe there'll be a couple of things you didn't know about. So here we go here. There's various tools along the side here that are a couple of tools that are, these are the ones that are for InDesign, and they, I guess actually what I'm trying to say is, so like when I was showing you in Illustrator and there was the blend tool, you don't have the blend tool within here, but you do have, who now has InDesign? Does the Star Telegram have InDesign? Oh, yeah, okay, that's interesting. I think that well, that's that's getting off on the side, but Quark Express was like was it, and never even when InDesign started coming out, I don't think Quark Express even expected InDesign to have any impact whatsoever on this, the desktop publishing like works world, and they got a big awakening there because InDesign just kept going, and plus it made sense for people to have InDesign since they were using all the other Adobe programs, and the big sell was that InDesign worked flawlessly with Photoshop and all the others because it was an Adobe product. And they've certainly, like I said, made it more like that by the fact that they keep doing all the different, remember before I showed you like Essentials, there's different workspaces. So now there's different various workspaces within InDesign, all like giving you different things for what they think you need for, say, typography. So let's pick that just for the heck of it. And you can see that we have different things here that are related to typography. This is one of my favorites. Let me go ahead, just do a quick new document before I show you through this. And this is actually also, the glyphs is part of Illustrator too. I really enjoy using it in Illustrator. But the point is, and let's use Bicam Pro. And I'm picking Bicam Pro on purpose, which is a script font. But when I was talking about flourishes and things like that about the font, this is a good example of it. So this is, and we can't see it, but this is part of my plan here. Show you some of the other things. If I click once, I do a word. If I double click, I get the line. If we had a paragraph, triple click, and so forth. 5 clicks would actually be the whole document, but that's really not necessary when you can also do Command A or Control A if you're a PC person. If I hold down my Command Option Shift and the greater than or the period key, I am making this bigger in increments of 10 at a time. I could also go ahead and just hold down the Command Shift key and use this, and now I'm only going up 2 points at a time. So let's do it again and just do it a little bit till we get to that. So I've already showed you that in Illustrator, so I've lost track of that. But here, like we can actually select the T and show alternates for this section, so we can go ahead and change it to this kind of T or that one or that one. And it's these pro fonts and like this script font that has, not all of them will give you this many variations of it. But the other thing is, of course, also that you can do is you can say, show me the entire font. So if you weren't sure where a symbol was in this, you can quickly go through here and find it. There's a lot with this one. So let's change it again. And now I'll show you the other one, a couple of the other tricks for this. One, all right. Okay, kept clicking this time just to show you that. So the shortcuts for selecting, for making the, are you asking about the type shortcuts? Sorry, Samantha, sizing? Yeah. So right now I have it all selected, and if I hold down Command Option Shift or Control Alt Shift, and then now if I hold down the comma or the down, or what I call the less than sign, I'm going down by 10 points. So see, now it's going 40, 30. If I go ahead here again, now I'm going back up. And to do it by 2 at a time, you would hold down the Command and Shift key for a Mac, Control and the Shift key for a PC. And that will take you higher in 2-point increments at a time. So I like to work with that because I just want to, I'm always changing the sizes. All right, so let's say we don't want this font, and I hope this works in InDesign. I'd actually, it was. Okay. Here's the cool thing, because like I said, I'm one of those people who loves shortcuts, because it's going to help me go faster. When I teach, that's what I talk about. Well, I hope it helps you in the future now, Samantha. So here's this font. I have it highlighted. And by the way, and for those of you who have never used this before, this means right now with the blue, when you're seeing the blue box on top of that black type, it means that I have that selected, and whatever I have selected is what I am going to affect. So meaning, let me just type some more words in. And it is a very fancy font. Okay, so if I just did this now and I went ahead and did this, you can see that I'm only affecting that. That's what's getting larger and not the other. So just want to show you that. So now, so again, like I said, 1 click, 2 click is a line, 3 click is the paragraph. Now, if you press Command and the number 6, or Control the number 6, it takes you up to the fonts. Then I can simply use my arrow key. Right now I'm using my down arrow key, and it's going to be different for you guys. But I can go through every font I have to decide what I like. So, pretty cool. And this is no longer Bic and Pro, this is now Apple Casual, Apple Chancery, and so forth. Anyway, you get the idea. So this is Avenir. Let's keep that on and go through it. If I press the Tab key, it goes on to the next thing. So right now it says light. This is Avenir Light. If I start typing in B, and if it goes off, then I just have to do it again. Bold might not be a choice in this. So let's see. And it's not. Of course, I picked the one font that does not have bold. It has black. So let's try typing black. Anyway, really, that should work. But there we go for that. Pretend I did it. Tab to the next one. So again, now this is back to right now. This is 62-point type. I can go ahead and use my arrow keys to just go up 1 point at a time. And I can use the down arrow key to go back down too. This next one is the leading. So it's the spacing between the lines of copy. So here's the term that we've talked about, but now let's actually play with it. Which, by the way, you don't want to use auto, and you certainly don't want to use something this bad. So in this case, what I have is 61-point copy with 30 points of spacing in between, so you can see what happens with that. It looks like crap. So we will just simply change it. And we can end up doing the same thing with here, where we play with it with the arrows. As long as it's the item that's selected up here, and it is. So you can tell by that. Then you can see that I can just use the arrows to go back and down. Now, if you want at any time, it's actually just not recommended in doing typography. I'll find a better answer for you, but it's just one of those things that really auto supposedly doesn't do that good a job. Anyway, if I hold down the shift key, you can see I can do more dramatic quicker. It means the shift key does increments of 10. Otherwise, it's usually either increments of 1 or 2. This is the letter behind this. I won't go through all of these things, but I'm going to select it all and just show you. This is another one of my favorite shortcuts. So it's Command Shift C, centers type, or Control Shift C. Command Shift R makes everything align to the left. I mean to the right. I told you right before that I'm very directionally challenged. Command Shift L, and we go back to left. Well, we should. Command Shift J for justify. My keyboard's getting stuck. And justify type is, for those of you who don't know it, it stretches out the words to fit so that both sides are even, with the exception of whatever the last line, but that can be done too, because right here, if you go like this and choose this one, justify all lines, it will do that. Not sure how often you'd really want to do that, but that's just what that's about. So did you InDesign, you guys who know InDesign know that those things already? We'll go back to that. Good old Glyphs thing. Nope. Oh, here's another quick one. This is, so see how it says don't save, cancel, or save? You can actually use a shortcut key to represent all of those. So I can just tap on the letter D for don't save, and it goes away. S for save, C for cancel. It's just a quick shortcut key as well. So this is an example of ragged lines. This is some other of my favorite things. And this is an example of balanced ragged lines, which sometimes it just ends up looking better than this one, which you can see here. So where do you find that? We do say Command A to select that whole paragraph. And InDesign has so much stuff going on. That's probably the toughest part that it's going to be for you guys about learning it, is that there is just so much to it. But once you hopefully get more comfortable, and that's why I'm happy to be introducing it, so when you get to the class, for those of you who haven't had it. But we have a whole list of features here, and one of them is called Balanced Ragged Lines. And that's what it tries to do. It tries to make that paragraph look a lot more balanced. I think so. I'm a very big fan of like saving time. I was actually like amazed at how many long-term designers I work with who did not use shortcuts, and it's okay when you're just starting out, but if you've been in this industry for a while and are doing that, it's kind of, I think, something that you really need to pick up. Anyway, let's show you here also with InDesign. That's kind of cool. Photoshop uses layers. Illustrator actually doesn't do layers, but it's the way you build up. You just, whatever you start with, everything builds on top of it from there. So it doesn't have layers. It doesn't really have layers, but you could use layers in Illustrator, and you can actually use layers within here too. So there is actually a layers panel. So I think that is actually a great thing to have as well. What I like to do is put my copy on one layer. I like to put the images on one layer. It just makes things easier later on, like when I'm doing it, especially for some of the larger documents. This program is amazing for doing catalogs. There's a lot of catalog work still out there. I find them fun. There's a thing called auto merge. I mean, I can make a whole bunch of business cards in like seconds from using this auto merge feature, but that's a little bit more complex. I won't get into that today. But anyway, here is a page layout thing of this. I did not have this thing done in facing pages. I could change that to facing pages at any time. And when I'm talking about facing pages, does everybody realize that? Like, either take a book in front of you or pretend, or if you have a magazine or something nearby, you have your cover, right? So that's in a way technically page one. It's by itself, doesn't face another page. But once you open up a publication of a magazine or whatever, you have pages 2 and 3 are facing each other. You can open it up as a spread, that going through. So that's what I'm talking about here. In this particular document, it's not done that way, but at any time, you can go to a document setup, and you can see right here, see this little box, it says facing pages. It also says number of pages. We can go ahead and change it to that and say okay, and it changes it like that. I'm going to press Command Z, which is your best friend, for undo, or Control Z if you don't know that to do it. Let's go into this. So again, I put these definitions in here: leading, kerning, baseline, shift. So I can give this out as a thing. So vertically aligning the text in the box, because that happens a lot too. This right now is, we have type inside a box with a frame. So I select it, I'll say Command B, because that's a shortcut to bring this up. And there's a lot of good stuff in here, including vertical justification. So we can now change it back to, we can say top, and you can say preview, and you can say bottom, just so you can see. Justify is where you can even out all the lines of copy within a document vertically. This is more, it makes more sense when you're doing something that's got several columns. Like in this case, it's probably not great because of the way we have it here. But it's the other thing, you can change the amount of columns here. I'm going to cancel this, and we'll go back to that. Embedding graphics, that's a fun thing that you can do too. This this is a graphic right here. And this little, it's probably hard to see on the screen. Let me see if I can zoom in on it. Yay, I can. All right. So I'm using the command and the plus key. I've mentioned this one, I think, before. The command plus or minus zooms in, or control plus or minus for PC. So this little thing is an anchored object, which means if we go ahead and click on the text tool here and put in a return, you can see it's going to stay where it is and move. So how do you do that? Let's go ahead and just do that. And I could do it with anything. And by the way, I have it turned off so that it's in pretty thing. But if you press the W, what I'm doing, and it's just the W key, what I'm doing is looking at this thing without, so seeing the workspace around it. And if I press the W key again, it's more, what is this going to look like when it's printed? So it takes away all the distraction, but there's certainly, like, and a lot of times that's what I will do. I use this thing to keep other stuff. So, but it's not, this is off of the printing part of the document. So here was the thing, here's how I did it. I just did that, and I just did Command C, Control C, PC people to copy it. And let's say we want it right here. Let's do it at the beginning of this paragraph. We just paste it. And then the same thing. you can just see that now it's going to stay with it going through. So it's really that simple. And it could be anything. It could be a picture. If you have like a regular picture, it doesn't have to be just a symbol like this arrow. It could be any kind of graphic that you want. And you could just, it's just a fun thing to do to embed things within it. This, let's talk about just the idea of that Photoshop has anti-aliasing. And that's just the way of, if you play with it within Photoshop, but it makes type more readable, more legible. We'll go into that after. Of course, more fun too. You can do type on a path. You can do this in Illustrator as well. And I believe probably in Photoshop. But to be honest, I never actually do it in there because I just haven't had the reason to. But this is just a path drawn. And it's really, really simple as well. Once you get used to it. There is a tool here called the pen tool. The one that it tends to be, and it's in all the programs, and it tends to be the tool that overall most people like the least because they find it the most difficult. But it's really a lot of fun. And this is what you would do when you use to cut out. Now right now, I'm just clicking curves and drawing, and you can see that now I have this yellow stuff happening here. And that is because right over here represents the fill. And if you hover over everything, it'll tell you what everything is. So right now, fill, stroke. So I have this yellow thing going on. I don't want that. I'm going to open up the swatches and I'm going to change that to none for the fill. So now there's a stroke, but no fill. Then I'm simply going to click and hold. Remember, I've mentioned this a couple of times about the fact that if you see a little arrow, it means there's more to be had. Well, there is in the case of this text tool as well. So if you click and hold, we have type on a path. And so we can simply click on our path here and we can just start. And of course you're going to play with it because stuff like that, right, with the way the word start is, it's not looking that great. But there's, more ways to fix it. And you can also just, pick a shape and you can put text within any shapes within InDesign. So this is just simply the fact of a circle, and it's easy enough to do as well. There aren't, here's one of the things where it lacks. You get a lot more shape choices in Adobe Illustrator than you do here. So that's why also, but we can also, let me show you that real quick. So I have Illustrator open right here. Right. That. Let's go ahead and do the star. I don't want it to be, actually, I want it to be a red stroke star with no fill, just for the heck of it. So I have it selected. You can tell that by the blue box going around it. For those of you who haven't used this, that's what that means. That's a blue bounding box. So in this case, when I was talking about when I showed you the blue around the type in InDesign, this blue box represents the fact that this is what's selected in Illustrator. I'm going to say Shift X, and I have a star. I'm going to copy it within Illustrator. I'm going to go over here, and let's do a new one so you can see it. And I'm just going to paste it. So I could copy something from one and just paste it into the other. So that's why I'm saying there are things all day. That's why I keep these things up. And let's do type tool. Okay, so it's automatically going in here through the shape. I'm going to do here, we can do type. This is another thing I love about InDesign, fill with placeholder text. So you can start to get an idea of going through. And again, now if I turn off the W key, you can see, more of what this is going to be. Right now it has a red stroke. I might not end up wanting that. I can still change that within here. Even though I'm in this other, even though I created it in Illustrator, right now I can switch it. What I just did was switch to the red background. I'm going to undo that for a second. I'm going to click over here. And anyway, I could go ahead and I'm using the X key to bring the stroke to the front and then going like that. And we could just, have the text in a shape. So just something to think about too. Again, not saving it. Through or that. So here's tips for creating neat body text. For more than 1 or 2 paragraphs, it's better to go with black text on a white page. And by the way, also, let me just show you this. It's really actually a good idea whether you're in Word or in InDesign or one of these word editing programs. It's a good idea to keep the invisibles on because first of all, it's easier to see that right away. I've done this other, I have an extra space here because that's what this represents. And I don't need that extra space there. I'm going to say Command 0 or it could be Control 0 to zoom back out so you can see everything. I'm going to reset the typography workspace to get rid of that other stuff. So, and we're going to go, oops. By the way, if you're going to do my W shortcut, make sure you're not in the type tool. That's the one time where it's not going to work because obviously if you're in a text tool, the type tool, and wherever you are, you're going to start typing the letter W. So I'm just clicking off over here. This is the selection tool. It's the main tool for selecting items. If I click off here, now there should be no blue because I don't want anything selected. And I'm going back to the W so we can go to a cleaner look here. So where to start, like I said, go out there, look for something you like, then you can emulate it and improve it. So be average, start with the default and go from there, making adjustments in small steps. Each font will be a new situation. Some fonts are better than others when it comes to reading legibility. And you'll get to learn that. For one thing, also, when I was talking about, there's the serif fonts are good for, like the 8.5 to 11 range for long things of copy and being able to read it. But you can also use a sans serif font larger to make it, a display kind of effect. But it doesn't work the same with a display font. You wouldn't want one of those decorative fonts to be entirely paragraphs for somebody to read. It would just be too difficult. So, and then that's some of the things to think about are usage. What's the end product? An instruction manual is going to have smaller typesetting, while a cookbook can use large text. Long reading, for text that is comfortable for reading over long periods, think medium, so 9 points with 11.5 letting is average and a good starting point. So these are not like, this is it, you should do this. These are just suggestions for a place to start. Short reading, common in magazines, small amounts of text can be set smaller and tighter. Best way to check readability, read it, print it, proof it, pass it on to someone else to read. I'm a good proofreader except for my own stuff, and I apologize for the errors in the one earlier because I didn't actually get a chance to proof that before I set it up. So this is something that everybody should use, whether or not it's Word or this. I hate even using that term, but I will. And just imagine though that you had like a huge document full of various paragraphs, and then you needed to change the font. You don't want to go paragraph by paragraph. When you have a paragraph style like that's what's used in here. And let's open it up, the panel, so you can see, in case anybody hasn't used these. What this is saying is this is the main copy. Actually, let's choose this first paragraph. And it's got a style, it's a paragraph style, it's the drop cap. So if we go ahead and click on it, oops, by the way, that's how you collapse things. Click here and we go to In my case, it's a right-click thing. So for me, I need to hold down the Control key because for me, that's a right click. So I'm selecting drop cap. It's equivalent of right clicking, and I'm going to say edit drop cap so you can see what's going on here. And it's a lot, but there's general, there's basic. So right now, the main font is Lavinier. Let's change it to something horrible and display-like so we can see how awful that would look. Like, let's see, chalkboard, because that sounds like it would definitely be something goofy. Did I just say that? Let's say okay. And it wasn't as bad as I expected it to be. But you can see what happened is both paragraphs had that same style, so I only needed to change the paragraph style in order to make that universal change for all of them. So style sheets just are great, and the more they can be more complex, and the better you get to know them, the more you could be very specific, like the fact of this, like we want the first couple of words to be in black and then switch over to the white type, that kind of thing. There's a whole bunch of things called nested styles. That's a little too complex for this today, but just something to keep in mind. Custom typeface, warping text in Photoshop, fun. You can also do it in Illustrator. That's a lot of fun too. You can do like different, so you can warp to shapes. As you can see in here, these come with it. They have different things in the warping, and we don't run out of time. I can show you that. And when I say outline text in InDesign, I'll show you what that is. Right now, I use my favorite font, my Fritigar Ultra Black. And I'm just using the type tool and I'm clicking out and drawing a box. And what that means is that it'll keep my type, whatever I type now, it'll keep it confined to that particular box. And let me go ahead and go out of here for a second, click off, turn the W key on again so you can see everything. Okay, so I'll click back on here and I'll say whatever. And I'll say Command A, and I'll hold down A, Command Option Shift or Control Alt Shift, and the greater than, and make it a little bigger. Okay. So now I have this, and it's a word, and I can change it. Of course, I can edit it, meaning that I could type over it and say, something. Can retype it. So just showing that real quick because now I'll retype that word, and they're under Object menu. I think it's under Object because again I do this by shortcuts. So in fact, I probably will just tell you that. What I've done is, let's zoom in on it. I'm going to undo it so you can see what I did. What I did is I clicked on it, the box. I don't even have to click on the type. I'm just clicking on the box, meaning this blue outside box container for where it is. And I'm doing Command Shift O for outlines, or Control Shift O. And I believe it's under type. Here it is, type, create outlines. It shows you also, by the way, what the shortcuts are. They'll be different for a PC, and they'll have that under there as well. And what that means is this is no longer editable. So I cannot take this type tool as much as I try. I am not going to be able to change this word, whatever. But what I can do is have fun with it. See, because now it's a bunch of paths. And because it's a bunch of paths, you can see as I'm hovering over it, you see all these little white things? Those are points. So I could just reach out and start just, it's another way to, whatever, manipulate, have fun. So anyway, you get the idea. It's like a path thing for that. I'm going to say Command 0 would be Control 0, whatever, to zoom back in. And this was just some font, some advice for print. Then we have some, because you'll get a copy of it, that's why I'm just going through it. And it's about using fonts on a website. So print has had a lot more choices and flexibility when it comes to fonts, so long as you have legal rights and you're able to supply them to your printer. If you have your fonts outlined, you're not going to need to supply that font to the printer, because it's no longer really a font anymore. It's actually more of an image because it's been made into an outline. Does everybody understand that concept? If not, I can show you that in Illustrator as well. It's probably easier to understand from that. Here's web, so a little bit of web stuff. Type and color. This is good. This is important to you. So if readable text is your main priority, it's best to go with black on white. Not every black is the same. Never use the registration black, and plain black is needed for body text. Let me just show you that real quick. So if somebody else does not bring this up to you when you learn it, the first thing I ever do when I am actually, these colors can actually be moved around. So see, look, I'm going to click and hold the yellow and bring it up on top of the blue. This registration by default comes in up here somewhere, and it's not supposed to be something you use. You use it for what they call like registration marks, printer's marks, and things like that, but it's always something that can get you into trouble. So the first thing I always do in my program is I move it to the bottom, because unfortunately it won't let me delete it. Because if I could, I would just take that thing and just trash it. So here's the idea of, let's see if we can zoom in on it so you can see, when I was talking before about liking black, this becomes an issue with a printer, and I don't know if you can see it. My thing is too good on that. But there's actually the term rich black is where we start adding like cyan, magenta, yellow to it. So it's not just the K anymore. We're adding other colors to the black, and it makes it a richer black. And there were times, and the other newspaper people can probably like relate to this, but that was like the biggest no-no in the world for us at the Dallas Morning News. We had somebody who actually went through all the ads to make sure there was no rich black, because we would get a lot of stuff that was supplied by outside people. And then there's the review of this, so, and that. So just a good thing to give you as an extra handout, and I just want to go over some of it. There's the thing about cooler, achieving active color, more things so if you want to know more about how the actual printing process works. So I will give you that. So much more I would love to show you on this, but I'm going to have to leave that to that. Yeah, you don't pick it up. I have to give it to you. So I'm trying to figure out if I can figure out where to put it on that Smoolearn thing. But I think if you guys don't mind, what I'm going to do is just create a Dropbox, because I have that. And I'm going to put all the stuff in there, and I'm going to send you all a link to it. Because then at least I know it's in the one place. Once I get more comfortable with the Smoolearn site, I'll go ahead and put the stuff on there. The movies of the classes I have to do on YouTube because they're too big for the, they won't, it can't be uploaded to the Smoolearn site. So just so you know, that's why I haven't done that. I tried, it did not work. And I'm trying to think through that with else. But I should be able to do the handouts, but I'm just going to go ahead and create a folder. And what I'll do is when I send you the email with that thing I talked about earlier about the pie company, you can have, I'll send you a link to the Dropbox as well, where we'll have parts of the handouts. By the end of this thing, there'll be a lot more in there. So, because I have a work in progress that's like that's everything consolidated of, you know, where to further, like I said, find. If you want to know about images, if you want to know about color, if you want to know about, you know, more job sites, you know, just everything that hopefully I can anticipate that you may need. And then that's it. It's 8:30. Actually, you're supposed to be checking the SMU Learn for that. The SMU Learn site. They're supposed to be on there. I meant to ask somebody to show that. A couple of people said that they have found it. Is that true? Have you guys seen the assignments on there? Because if you don't see this third, then yeah. Okay. Because like I said, your view is different than mine. I couldn't see exactly. I'm not. That's my problem with trying to direct you. Do you know what I mean? Because as an instructor, I have a different access. So that's what I'm trying to say. Next time, if it's okay, would one of you mind just demonstrating it? That might be a good, helpful thing. Show where you found it. So, yeah, let's see. What is the other? Yeah, that's it. So those of you who aren't feeling well, I hope you feel better. And everybody else. All right, you're unmuted. So thank you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. Here for a minute.